Pickers to another edition of Pure Picks. I'm your host James, and we're here to break down UFC 309 Jones versus Miocic coming up this Saturday. It's going to be a pretty banger of a card for the last two fights, at least. That I'm pretty excited for. If you guys want to see a recap of how we did last week, please go check out Alex's video that he dropped a couple days ago. Other than that, I did want to recap actually some results that our community had. So, as you guys see here, I mean, I'm not a video expert, so I couldn't find a way to make this show clearly. But just come along with me here. Kevin, who's one of our founding members, betting enthusiast, strategist, advisor, he went up 16K last week, as you guys can see, for the last event using the Pure Picks platform. Basically just did his own due diligence with the also due diligence from the Pure Pick squad here, and that really helped him avoid the traps, save time on research, also allowed him to slam hard on favorites because it was a very chalky card, and that was the direction that we went as well, and also allowed him to take some risks on Gaston Bolanos, which was the only plus odds underdog that had cashed for the week. So using our platform, as you guys see here, I'm trying to zoom in here. He made $16,000 on the night, various parlays, various plays. Luana Perino, we told him not to do that one, but hey, it's all about taking in our research and then making your own decisions. And that's how you make money in this game, right? Always follow your own heart, your own brain, your own gut. But we're here to give you some of the research that's needed to be able to flow in those decisions and make the correct decision. But yeah, wildly successful, 16K. Please join our Discord. I think that's where you're going to get most of the alpha. YouTube is a great game, social media, we're on TikTok, Instagram, and all of that. But main place that we want our subscribers to be is on Discord. So please join it. That's where you're going to get our real-time thoughts, decisions, analysis. Also, if you're not a pro member already, please join. $20 a month for some of this alpha. You can join either through our Discord, on our websites at purepicks.gg, or on WAP payments. Once again, $20 a month, one of the better values in this space. But let's move on to the fight card. So let's break down UFC 309. First fight that we have coming up, we have Veronica Hardy versus Eduarda Moura. Hardy opened up at minus 150. There was a point where she was played to minus 170. Now she's down to minus 140 again, so it's been yo-yoing. Give me the underdog in this fight. I think that Alex did a pretty good job of breaking this fight down. So if you guys want to see a little bit more analysis, I would check out his video for sure. My thoughts on here, I actually agree with Alex pretty much for this fight. I do think that's going to be a pretty binary fight. Either Moura is going to get those takedowns, control time, get the submission, get an easy decision here, or even a submission, or Hardy is going to fend off those takedowns, stick and poke for the majority of 3 rounds, and win a decision that way. I'm going to side with Moura just because I think that she's going to be a more committed grappler than the fighters that Hardy has faced thus far. As we look at Hardy, so on her comeback tour from the UFC, she's faced Juliana Miller, who's not that great. So I don't think we should even look at that fight. Let's look at the Jamie Lynn Horf, JJ Aldridge. So Hardy, in these first 2 rounds for both these fights, she's just been sticking and poking, fending off any kind of grappling situations, using her speed, movement. She has pretty good quick movement, kind of like a karate style in a way. She's just pretty fast and really quick, especially with the kicks. She can do a lot of kicks as well. She's just been doing that for the first 2 rounds, and then in the 3rd round, she tends to slow down a bit. And that's when, these bigger ladies can get in clinching situations with her, maybe even land some takedowns. But I think that Jamie Lindhorf, JJ Aldridge, they're not on the level of grappler that Moura is, and they're not as going to be as committed. As you guys can see, I mean, Jamie Lindhorf, I think, shot 3 takedowns. JJ Aldridge shot 2 takedowns. So they were trying to strike with Hardy, which I don't think you should. I think that Hardy actually does not have the best takedown defense. If you just look at the totality of her career, she's obviously improved, but I think that in this fight, that will be tested. And I think that she's going to fail the test. I think that Moura is just going to blast those double legs even. I think she trains with John Almeida, like Alex mentioned. And I think we're going to get that game plan here. Also, Hardy is consistently the smaller girl. Usually when she fights, she doesn't have the biggest frame for 125. Moura actually fought at 115, so she's been bullying people with that weight. I think she's missed weight multiple times in the UFC thus far, so now she's moving up to her more natural weight class probably. And I think that there will be a physical advantage here for Moura as well. So give me Moura. I think she's going to be committed with the grappling, and she's going to get either a decision win, possibly even a submission. I don't mind the money line play actually at plus 120. I think that's pretty decent. So give me Moura, be a decision here. Let's look at the next fight on the card. We have Bassil Hafez versus Oban Elliott in this welterweight matchup. Oban Elliott minus 280, opened up at a minus 187. I'm going with the Welch Gangster, Oban Evil Elliott. He has a couple of nicknames. I saw this guy's debut live against, I think, Val Woodburn. I think he fought him. And there was a moment in that fight where, he got rocked in the beginning, came back and won, though, because he was just much more skilled than Val Woodburn. Last fight against Preston Parsons, did a great job. He was a great underdog play. I actually picked him as an underdog. I think that in this fight, I'm picking Oban Elliott. I do think the odds are a little wide now. Minus 280. It's getting a bit much. I don't know if he's almost a 3-1 favor against Bassil Hafez, but anything in the, low minus 200 range, minus 100s range, I think that that's a good price for Oban Elliott. Reason why is I think that Bassil Hafez is actually overrated. He had a lot of goodwill with that JDM split loss. I don't think that's going to happen again because I think JDM really made that fight closer than what it needed to be. And even then, I thought that JDM still won that fight. It should not have been that close because I think people were just surprised that Bassil didn't get finished or he was still hanging on him. And, JDM also pulled a lot of guillotines, which is, not a good look as well. So we saw that Bassil Hafez last fight. This guy kind of went life and death with Gall, and that's not a good sign as well. I think that Bassil's a little overrated. He looks like he has KO power, but he only has 1 KO in his career. Also, his striking is very elementary to me. It's very much like single shots, not any combinations. So the hands really aren't there. He does have the natural power though, so he could rock you. But I would compare him to like an Andre Petrosky with maybe like not as good takedowns. So that's the kind of fighter that he is to me, and I tend to not want to play those fighters. Going to Oban Elliott, I really like his cardio. This guy also has pretty good durability, recoverability as well, because we saw that Val Woodburn rocked him, and he came back and just got his senses back and won a decision in that fight. He's also a good grappler himself, so I think that he'll be able to scramble with Bassil Hafez, solid takedown defense as well. I think that he'll be able to sprawl, brawl if needed. And yeah, he's pretty durable as well. So give me Oban Elliott in this matchup. I just trust him with more activity in the striking. And I think that he has enough offensive and defensive grappling to cause some trouble for Bassil Hafez here. Let's look at the next fight on the card. We got Gall versus Ramiz Brahimaj. Let's look at the odds. Gall minus 140. Opened up at a minus 140. So it's been yo-yoing back and forth a bit. I'm going to go with Gall here. Ramses, he hasn't really shown me much in his UFC career. He had a pretty long layoff, I think, off of injury. I think he had like some kind of back surgery or something, and then he fought Demba Garimbo. Just literally got out beasted, out grappled, out wrestled throughout that fight. I do think that Ramses, he has a pretty credentialed, I think, background in jiu-jitsu. So he's to me, he's like a jiu-jitsu nerd. I don't think that he just has much to offer in modern MMA. On the flip side, if you look at Mickey Gall, I mean, I just feel like he has a better tool to like better potential even at age 32. I know that, he's one of those guys that just feels like he's been a prospect for forever, but I do think that he has a solid skill set. He does have good grappling, good takedowns. He can lock in some chokes as well. His striking, I feel like his striking is even better than Ramsey's, to be honest. I think that also Ramsey's in this matchup, he's probably going to fade. He doesn't have the best gas tank. His cardio is a question mark consistently. Mickey Gall, we saw in that last fight against Bassil Hafez, he was losing at various points, but just continued to fight and actually made that fight closer than it probably should have been, honestly. So he does have that dog in him. Giving Mickey Gall in this fight, I think he's probably going to win a decision. And yeah, I wouldn't mind playing him in a potential parlay even. I mean, minus 140, maybe like a 2-leg parlay would be a good one for him. Just to get some better plus odds, add him with another like parlay juicer, maybe later in the card. Let's go to the next fight on the card. We have a heavyweight matchup between Marcin Tybura. First is Jhonata Diniz. Tybura opened up at plus 150. Now he's a minus 146. I'm gonna have to ride with Diniz here. I think that this is gonna be also a kind of a scary pick for me because I just have flashbacks of Rebellis de Spain. A guy that's good striker, obviously, but just a totally unproven ground game. But I think the reason why I'm picking Diniz here is that he won against Carl Williams. So I think that the grappling hole that he has, grappling disadvantage that he has, is a little bit overblown. He still got the win over Carl Williams, who is a much better wrestler and grappler than Marcin Tybura. Let's not get that twisted. I mean, Carl Williams has wrestling credentials. Tybura is more of that kind of all around master of none, like jack of all trades in a way. I think that he's solid. Obviously, he can use the grappling, but we just saw Jhonata Diniz survive against Carl Williams, who I think is a better grappler. I think he's going to be able to survive here too against Tybura. Also, Tybura does not have that durability that Carl Williams has. So we've seen him get chinned many times. He can honestly get chinned here as well. I actually like the value on Diniz. I think that Diniz is a much better striker. The upside for Tybura is that you're hoping that he does some kind of lay and pray action. And, hey, if you want to play him at, kind of minus odds as a favorite for that, that's fine. But I'd rather take the finishing equity of Diniz because I don't think he's going to submit him. I think that Diniz has a pretty good chance of knocking this guy out. So, yeah, give me Jhonata Diniz here as the underdog. I actually think he's pretty solid as underdog. I wouldn't mind playing him at plus 126 right now. Let's move on to the next fight on the card. So, this one just came through. I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't do much research on this one just because it's so new. David Onama against Roberto Romero, I think. Yeah, so I don't really have too much data on this guy. I know that Onama, I mean, he's solid. He proved me wrong against GSP. Let's look at the odds here. Minus 1,000. I mean, he's probably gonna knock this guy out. I'm gonna pick Onama here, but I mean, I'm probably gonna do a little bit more research. Even then, I'm probably just gonna stay away from it just because I have seen David Onama fade in the past. This guy, maybe he's a really good striker, who knows, or grappler. But I think the picker is going to be Onama. I'm going to wait for a little bit more data on my end to see what I can do with that. Let's move on to the next fight. We have Jim Miller versus Damon Jackson in a lightweight matchup. So Damon Jackson's moving up from featherweight to lightweight here. Damon Jackson's minus 175, opened up at plus 115. I wish I would have got Damon Jackson at those plus odds. I'll tell you that. The pick here is going to be Damon Jackson. I actually think that he's a pretty good pick for this matchup. The striking, okay, Jim Miller's a better striker than him, but man, Jim Miller's like 41 years old, hasn't looked that great in his last couple fights. He got destroyed by Bobby Green, and I know Bobby Green is a better fighter than Damon Jackson, but Jim Miller's 41, and in a lighter weight class, I mean, I think that the next time that he shows up in the octagon, which is going to be this Saturday, he's just going to show up even worse. So I don't see him improving from that standpoint. Damon Jackson has a couple advantages. First off, I think that this moving up in weight will actually help him. He was cutting a lot of weight to go to 145. He's 5'11", has the same reach as Jim Miller, so he's the bigger guy than Jim Miller. I think that that's going to help him with his cardio issues, because sometimes Damon Jackson does tend to fade with the gas tank from the consistent grappling that he does. I mean, this guy just tries to get that takedown and just hold on to you and grind you out. Control is his game. And I think that that's going to help with the weight going up, because he's going to be less drained and he's going to be able to do that more consistently. Jim Miller, I mean, he's solid. He's a solid grappler himself. I think he's just going to get controlled for the majority of 15 minutes here. And I don't know if it's going to be close. So minus 175, I mean, I would still consider playing Damon Jackson, to be honest. Maybe once it gets to like minus 200, that'll be a little bit much. But I do like Damon Jackson coming in to this weight class for this matchup specifically, just because I don't think Jim Miller has much left, if I'm being honest. So give me Damon Jackson via decision. He could also find submission, if anything, but I think that submission is probably where it's going to go. Let's move on to the next fight on the card. So we have Chris Weidman versus Eryk Anders for a middleweight matchup. Eryk Anders opened up at a minus 185. Now he is a minus 115. Man, I feel like everyone's getting trapped with Chris Weidman here, but you know what? I'm gonna pick Chris Weidman as well. Man, this one I've been going back and forth with this one, honestly, because I've just seen so many people pick Chris Weidman. I haven't seen many people pick Eryk Anders yet, and I feel like this might be a trap that's being laid out for people who are backing Chris Weidman. But just looking at their skill sets, I think Chris Weidman's obviously just a better fighter. I mean, he is much older, though. He's coming off of more injuries. But Eryk Anders, I mean, he's also not the youngest fighter on the card. He's 37. His last fight, this guy went to a decision with Jamie Pickett. I think he also got like dropped against Jamie Pickett. That's not a good sign. They're bringing back the old gloves, right? And Chris Weidman, we saw this guy just throw some blatant eye pokes to get that dub, and he's fighting in Madison Square Garden in New York. He's a native New Yorker. I mean, he's probably going to do anything to win. He might have some bad karma coming his way because Bruno Silva, he's just like made that guy blind pretty much for at least a couple of nights. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Weidman, though, just because I do think that he just has the better skill set. I mean, his striking, he looked much better than he did against Brad Tavares. I feel like he shook off some rust after that loss. And Eryk Anders, I just feel like both of them are going maybe in a little different directions. I feel like Weidman's going on the up, Anders is going on the down. Plus odds and Chris Weidman actually is not that bad. I mean, I think that he was solid there. But this is probably going to be a really close decision, if anything, because both of these guys are probably going to try to make things dirty. It's going to be a lot of dirty boxing, clinching, showing who's the more physical threat. I mean, Eryk Anders that's his game, right? But I think that Chris Weidman can do that too. And, he's a good wrestler himself. So yeah, I'm gonna go Chris Weidman as well. I'm probably just gonna stay away from this, honestly. But if anything, I wouldn't mind Chris Weidman via decision. Let's actually see what that prop is. So Chris Weidman via decision is plus 175. I mean, I'd rather just play that than his money line at this point because I mean, yeah, if you can get him at plus 160, like some of these people did, then I think that was great. But if you can't get him there, I feel like just getting him at those decision odds would probably be best because I don't see either guy getting knocked out. I don't see either guy being a submission threat in this fight. So yeah, give me Chris Weidman here via decision. Wouldn't mind a play on his prop, honestly. Let's look at the next fight on the card. So we have Jonathan Martinez versus Marcus McGhee. Marcus McGhee opened up at minus 110. Now he's a minus 130. I'm going to roll with Marcus McGhee here. I think that Jonathan Martinez is, man, I did not like what I saw against him and Jose Aldo. Maybe that was just because, he's facing a legend in Brazil, but he showed me little to nothing in that fight. I think Marcus McGhee, very early on in his career, but, he's 34, right? But he's gotten better each time. And I feel like this guy, he looks pretty juiced to me. I think that he has a lot of power. Martinez is probably going to try to come in here and chop this guy's legs. I still don't think that. I feel like he's going to fight the same fight that he tried against Jose Aldo, except maybe this time, I think that he's going to have more success with the leg kicks because, I think that McGhee might not be able to check as much as Jose Aldo did, but his hand speed is there, though. McGhee's hand speed is there. His hands are there. His power is there. I think he can catch Jonathan Martinez coming in as he tries to kick him. I think he just counter box him, just like kind of Jose Aldo did. And this time, Jose Aldo doesn't really have much power in his hands at this age, right? But I think Marcus McGhee, especially with the juice, he might be coming in with some heat. And I don't know if Martinez is going to be able to withstand some of this that's coming back at him. So it's going to be a lot of McGhee just pressuring constantly with the hand speed, with the power. And even in his back pocket, I think that he has some solid takedowns. So he could even try to take this guy down and use that kind of physical advantage that he has, because I think that he's actually the stronger fighter here as well. So yeah, give me Marcus McGhee. Wouldn't mind playing him in the money line play. But it is, I would say that this card has a lot of fights where it could be really close. But I do like siding one side at least for the value, and I think that Marcus McGhee does have some value here. So yeah, give me Marcus McGhee minus 130. I do like that price. I think it should go to decision, but I honestly would not count out a knockout here. I think McGhee could find a knockout. Looks like some action was not taken on that, but yeah, I think that McGee's hand speed and just power is a little underrated at this point, and could be maybe it's a buy low on Martinez, but I don't think so. I think that this guy, he's just had some like good matchups in his career so far. Yanez, I thought that he lost that fight against Said Nurmagomedov, and these two guys that he fight, I mean, like, they were kind of washed. Cub Swanson, I remember watching that fight. Vince Morales, not that great of a fighter. So yeah, give me Marcus McGhee in that matchup. All right, we're going to move on. I believe this is the main card. So we have Mauricio Ruffy versus James Llontop. Odds right now, Ruffy is minus 800, opened up in a minus 220. Okay, obviously the pick here is going to be Mauricio Huffy, I think. Mauricio Huffy. Yeah, I mean, I wish that the odds just were not that wide because I would definitely play it. I understand why this was steamed to that. I mean, but like minus 900, minus 800. I feel like everyone's just buying into the hype at this point, right? Because this guy, Mauricio Ruffy, I mean, he looks like a Brazilian Conor McGregor. There's no other way around it. Just look at his face, his frame, the way he fights. Even like he has a beautiful straight that Conor also had. Some like spinning kicks. He had some highlight like the highlight scissor takedown that he tried against Jamie Malarkey. So this guy has some. Just has a lot of hype around him, and I think that is why he's getting steamed to minus 800. Because on the feet, I mean, James Llontop, this guy, his fight against Slava Claus, which I was on the Slava Claus side, but I thought that was a pretty close fight. I remember at the end, I was like, man, this probably, yeah, it ended up being a split decision. So it was a close fight. I had Slava Claus winning, but I thought it was going to be not as close. And Lion Top actually showed me a lot more ability than that he had. And I consider Slava Claus a pretty good striker. So, man, I just think that these odds are a little steamed in a way. It's a little much. I think minus 200 was fine, 300, 400, but man, minus 900, I think that's a little much. Also, Lion Top, I don't think he's ever been knocked out before either. So, he's got a granite chin from what I remember. So, I could easily see this being a decision, honestly. You know, obviously, Ruffy does have some dynamic KO power, so he can catch you. He can definitely get knocked out. Just because you haven't been knocked out before doesn't mean you can't get knocked out. So that's always in play. But I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this was a decision going to round 3 and maybe it's like a 29-28 Ruffy or something like that. So picker is going to be Ruffy. I'm going to say Ruffy probably via KO still. I think he is going to catch him, but it's going to be probably later on in the fight and could be a closer fight than what people think. I'm probably just going to hold off. I mean, minus 800 is a little much for me. Next fight that we have, Vivi Arujo versus Karine Silva. Let's look at the odds for this. Minus 260 for Karine Silva, minus 275 opening line. Give me Karine Silva here. I actually think she's one of the better values on the card. Vivi, she's just been one of those fighters that I've been fading in her last few fights because from what I see, I think that she's a little washed. She has some cardio issues. She has some even fight IQ issues. But mainly it's the cardio issue. She just tends to fade in the later rounds because she starts off decent, but after about a round, in that second round, definitely the third round, she tends to not have much left and just is relying on that grit and that toughness. And it just doesn't get her much or anywhere with some of these fights that she's been having. I mean, the only fight that she won, I mean, granted, she's been fighting some pretty good fighters, but she's only beaten Jennifer Maia, right? And that's another older fighter who's not in their prime. So I think Karine Silva is just going to have a little bit more athleticism. She's going to have a little bit more of a skill set that can be trusted throughout the fight. For me, also, Vivi, she tends to just let people like hit her, and she doesn't have really good striking defense. So yeah, I think that for me, I think Karine Silva just has the advantage even on the feet. Definitely has advantage in the grappling, cardio issues, age 37 to age 30. I mean, we're looking at Karine Silva in the prime of her career, fighting against Vivi, who's obviously exiting her prime. So I'm going to have to go with Karine Silva here. I actually think that she's a decent parlay piece for this week. One of the better values. Minus 260 is a pretty good value for me. So I'm going to be looking to attack her some parlays for sure. Let's look at the next fight on the main card. Got Bo Nickal versus Paul Craig. Bo Nickal minus 1,200 opened up at minus 2,000. I mean, the pick here is going to be Bo Nickal. Don't really have much to say about this fight. I think that they're setting up Bo Nickal for a knockout, like a highlight knockout, highlight submission, something. I mean, I see Paul Craig, it's always popular to throw, some money at Paul Craig's submission or his round lines or, those kind of things. But um, I just don't think that he's a fighter that is going to give Bo Nickal much like worry in a way. Like I think Bo Nickal is just going to nullify all that jujitsu stuff that Craig's going to try to do on the ground. And if this is just a pure striking matchup, Bo Nickal, I mean, people say that he's very unproven, but he has some power in his hands. And we just saw Paul Craig get destroyed on the feet. He constantly gets destroyed on the feet against a lot of fighters. So I think Bo Nickal is probably going to land a crushing hook or overhand or something just to knock out Paul Craig, or he might just like wrestle him, get a submission. So yeah, either one of those is probably going to happen. Obviously, they're setting up Bo Nickal here. I mean, I don't think he's going to lose to Paul Craig. I think it's a good matchup. I mean, because Paul Craig has actual name value. He's been beating a lot of people, right, at light heavyweight. But since his move to 185, he's only beaten like Andre Muniz, I think. And yeah, I don't think that's going to be a matchup that is going to really relate to this one because Bo Nickal, just overall, the wrestling is going to be more so where I think he's just going to nullify anything that Craig has for him. So yeah, give me Bo Nickal here. At those odds, would I do something with it? Probably not. Yeah, I'll probably just pass on that fight. But yeah, I'll watch it and see what happens. Let's move on to the next fight. So we're at the co-main event. So these next two fights are what I'm going to be most interested in for this fight card. And we're going to start off with a banger here. This is going to be probably fight of the night candidate. Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. Let's look at the odds. So we have Oliveira minus 240, open up at a minus 300. I've been going back and forth with this fight. Ultimately, I think I'm going to pick Michael Chandler. Maybe that's the simp in me, right? I feel like I've been simping for this guy for a bit. No Diddy. But Chandler just has all of the tools that you would look for to try to beat a fighter most of the time, right? Because his explosiveness is just crazy. I mean, he's been in every one of these fights. I picked him against DP. In retrospect, that was a pretty bad pick, I think, because DP's like probably the perfect guy to beat him. And in this fight, I mean, the reason why I'm picking him over Oliveira is that both these guys thrive in chaos. And I think that the opening lines for this fight, for the first fight, because this is a rematch, we saw that Michael Chandler was a plus 115, right? I feel like it's going to be more so a 50-50 fight. And I think that the odds on this fight, just because he beat him once, that's probably what is steaming the line that way for Charles Oliveira. But I think that should be closer to 50-50. I think that plus 205 is actually a pretty disrespectful price on Michael Chandler. So I'm going to go with the value here. Oliveira, he strikes, doesn't tend to move his head. He gets rocked in every fight as well. Chandler gets rocked in every fight as well. We saw that the grappling for Charles Oliveira in that first round, their first fight, kind of was negated, right? Because like Chandler's just such a beast in that first round. He had his back taken, but he just exploded out of there. And he won that first round pretty convincingly. Now, in the next round, he got caught because Charles Oliveira he's like a really interesting mix of a technical striker, but a brawler in a way. And that's where you can give Michael Chandler issues, is that if you catch him really clean, he tends to just have no defense and he can get rocked himself, get KO'd himself. So that is the worry with playing Michael Chandler, is that this guy could also get KO'd at any point. But I also think that Charles Oliveira can also get KO'd at any point. I think this matchup is probably going to end up in a KO from what I see. Probably within 2 rounds, like just like the last fight. Also, just in terms of the motivation factor, I think that this is truly Chandler's last chance at any kind of championship fight, money fight, any of those things. I think that he sees that, you know, the McGregor fight is probably not going to happen. I think that he is now pivoted to, you know, looking for the championship for that next money fight. And Charles Oliveira is the roadblock for those goals, right? Charles Oliveira has been a champion before. You know, I'm not saying that he's less motivated now to win the championship, because it would be awesome to be a two-time champ like Izzy, right? Like a three-time champ like Izzy. Try to be a three-time champ, I think. But you know, I think that Charles Oliveira, I feel like Chandler's going to be the hungry guy here. I really do. I think that this is going to be his career on the line in the UFC, at least, for any kind of title aspirations, any kind of big money plays. So he's been training. Think about this. He's been training nonstop for like 2+ years to rip Conor McGregor's head off. I think he's going to manifest all of that energy, all of that hatred, anger into trying to, in his words, separate Charles Oliveira from consciousness. And yeah, I think that we're going to get the best Michael Chandler that we've seen. I mean, I normally don't like backing fighters off of 2-year layoffs, but in this case, if you guys just look at the pictures, I mean, Chandler is a guy that I don't think you need to worry about a layoff, because he fights the same way each time. He doesn't rely on like that timing, the rhythm, like that most fighters do. He's just a straight up beast, like physical beast, just wills his way through fights, straight up brawls. So I don't think he's going to need any of that. I think he's just going to rely on what has got him here. And I think this time he's going to finish Oliveira. So give me Michael Chandler here. I actually think he's a decent dog play, -200, -205. So yeah, might not be the most popular pick, but I'm riding with Michael Chandler for the co-main event to shock the world. Let's move on to the next fight that we have here. Main event time. We got Jon Bones Jones versus Stipe Miocic. Let's look at the odds here. -650 for Jon Jones. Open up at a -400. I'm going with Jon Jones here. I mean, he's my favorite fighter. I think that I've never picked against him. I'm not going to start doing now against a 42-year-old Stipe. Let's just outline a few reasons why I'm pick Jon Jones, though. I think that, so first off, he's going to come into this fight reportedly at probably 230 something, maybe even 220 something. We'll see what the official weigh-in is, but he's definitely going to come in lighter than he did against Ciryl Gane. And I think that just shows the fight IQ, high, big brain move of Jon Jones, right? This guy just knows how to game plan. The reason why he showed up at 248 for his last fight against Ciryl Gane was that he saw what Francis Ngannou did to Ciryl Gane. Pretty much just laid on him. Francis Ngannou, with little to no grappling knowledge at that time, pretty much laid and prayed his way to a win. And obviously he was coming off he was coming into that fight with knee surgery and knee pain or something, knee injury. So understand why he did that, but still Jon Jones saw that. He saw that Ciryl Gane had no idea what to do in grappling on the ground, clinch situations, takedowns. So that's why he came in a little heavier and just really finished him in the first round. For this fight, I think he knows that Stipe has pretty good, high fight IQ, and this guy is a guy that won a trilogy against DC, Daniel Cormier, who's another all-time great fighter, accomplished grappler. So Stipe knows what he's doing. He's not like a low IQ fighter here. Now, the problem with him is I think that all of his athleticism at this point is probably gone. I mean, he's 42. The last time he fought was 4 years ago. So there's no telling what he's going to look like when he gets into the cage. Even then, I mean, he was a guy that really relied on that kind of, boxing technique, right? So I don't think it's going to cause him a lot of issues, but he's just going to be the much slower guy here. And brings me back to my point. I think that Jon Jones is coming in here to be the Jon Jones of old again. I think that he's going to put up a vintage Jon Jones performance, which is dominating everywhere. So Stipe might have the boxing, but I think the quickness, the speed is going to be with Jon Jones. Athleticism will be Jon Jones. He's going to throw those kicks, throw those punches, those long range attacks, and we're going to get a vintage Jon Jones performance. Now, that means that we could get a decision here because Stipe is a very tough customer. It's really hard to kind of just finish him, right? Unless you're Francis Ngannou, which I don't think that Jon Jones is. I don't know if he's going to knock him out. So I think that most likely, if Jon Jones does finish him, is going to be with the grappling because I think that there is still a wide grappling advantage here. DC, he wasn't able to kind of submit Stipe. But I think that Jon Jones look at what he did to DC, right? So Jon Jones has that grappling advantage. And yeah, I think that for me, he's just too old, Stipe. I mean, there's just no way that he's going to beat the greatest fighter of all time at that age. Yeah, for me, I would say Jon Jones is like a parlay juicer. So just add him in the parlays, minus 650. I think he's solid there. I think that Jon Jones is probably going to find a submission at some point. So that will be my official pick. Is going to be submission by Jon Jones. You're going to see a vintage Jon Jones performance. He's probably going to retire after this, and then that'll be that. GOAT, greatest of all time. That about does it for the breakdown of UFC 309. Best of luck, everybody. Once again, please join our Discord. That's where you guys will see some in-depth analysis, real-time thoughts, and updates. Once again, best of luck, guys. We're out.